Hey everyone, I'm Angie Miller and I'm the host of Strong Mind, Strong Body. And in my upcoming episode, we talk about harnessing neurodivergence for focus, flow, and success in the workplace. My guest is Todd Hagopian. He is a transformation and turnaround specialist. This is part 2 of a 2-part series about neurodivergence in the workplace and spotlighting mental health in the workplace. So Todd talks about how to harness neurodivergence. Then it's a conversation about turning differences into strengths and learning to thrive with the mind that you have. So I hope that you will join me in the episode. And afterwards, I hope you'll like, follow, and subscribe. And by all means, please leave a 5-star review. I'll see you in the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series with a very special guest. His name is Todd Hagopian. Todd is a business transformation and turnaround specialist. He is an author and a keynote speaker. And Todd was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he is really forward about talking about bipolar disorder in the workplace and how we can harness neurodivergence. So if you didn't catch part 1, I hope you'll go in and listen because it was a very powerful episode about Todd's experience with opening up about mental health in the workplace and how he was able to find stability, but also maintain his success. So today in part 2, we are going to go from Todd's personal story to practical strategy. So he's going to talk about how to harness the neurodivergence for focus, flow, and success in the workplace, and also how to turn differences into strengths and learning to thrive with the mind that you have. So, Todd, I'm going to bring you in and have you introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you bringing me back, Angie. Name's Todd Hagopian. I am a business transformation expert. I turn around companies and of course, I'm bipolar. If you had listened to the last episode, and we're going to have some good discussion today.
And Todd, you wrote a book. Do you want to tell them the name of your book?
Sure. So I wrote a book called The Unfair Advantage: Weaponizing the Hypomanic Toolbox. The Hypomanic Toolbox is what we'll be talking about, are the different tools that I put together once I was diagnosed bipolar to help me systematize the good parts of bipolar, and try to continue to maintain those in the workplace after I got healthy and got on the medication.
Yeah. So basically, it was your way of kind of taking your lived experience and turning it into a strategy to help anyone, I would think, better focus, better performance, better leadership, whether you have whether you're experiencing, neurodivergence, or whether you are just, I would say all of us could learn or benefit from being better focused. I know I could. So I'm really anxious to dig deep into this because you have definitely developed this way to channel your neurodivergence into productivity and creativity. And you've got some core principles. And so let's take those principles kind of one at a time and talk about what you've come up with to help your brain and all of our brains focus better.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So first principle, and we won't go through all 10, but I'll go through kind of the four cool ones. The first principle is grandiose goal setting. So often we're taught to kind of under promise, over deliver. And I always say under promising and over delivering is for losers. Everyone does that. Nobody ever exceeds when they do that. I've had enough people working for me that the people that promise 6 and get 8, versus the people that promise 25 and get 19. The guys who promise 25 and get 19 are the ones that are getting promoted. The idea here isn't to always miss your goal. It's to set large enough long-term goals that you're thinking big picture and you're getting your whole team to think big picture and really harnessing that excitement that comes with the hypomania of bipolar and the big picture thinking on how to do things larger than just how much do I have to promise to be able to get my bonus next year. And I should start out with the this is a business transformation book, right? So these ideas are for people who are trying to be extremely good in business, not just folks who want to stay in the same job for a long time. So some of this is going to be a little more aggressive, and you're either that type of person or you're not, if that makes sense.
But I think that one's kind of fascinating. I think the grandiose goal setting, because to your point, we are taught to under promise, over deliver, because then we look like, wow, look what she did. She thought she was only going to do this. But your mind says, no, actually, if you do that, chances are you're only just going to match the effort, so to speak. You said you do 19, so you're going to do 19. But you're saying, say you're going to do 24. And even if you only do 20 in a business setting, if you nailed the 20, you still feel like you're promotable. You still feel like you are looked upon favorably.
100%. And it works even better if you really set the 3-year goal, like, hey, I'm going to double this business in 3 years, but next year might only be 9 or 10. And then you hit 12 or 13. That still looks better. You know what I mean? But the point is to start with that long 3 or 5 year big grandiose goal, and then work backwards and figure out what you can get your team to believe, how you can get your team to believe it, and make them realize that it needs to be bigger, not be afraid to set the big goal and to go for it. And because most teams, like you'll actually hear people say this, we don't want to promise 7 because then next year we'll have to do 7. You know what I mean? Like people will keep the goal low, just not only so they can hit it, but so that next year they don't have to go high. Or at the end of the year, we don't want to get to that 32 million. We'd rather stay at 29, because if we get to 32, they're going to make us hit 35 next year. And like you can hear how that loses money for the organization, how that loses your value as an employee. And this is all about like, hey, set a big goal, get people excited, figure out how to hit it. And by the way, if they get excited, they're going to help you figure out how to hit it. It's kind of like a flywheel effect.
Well, and it makes sense to me, because what you're really saying in terms, it's not just the grandiosity. It's the fact that you're thinking big picture. You're thinking long term. You're thinking, wow, we can do this. And there's a lot of excitement when you build something big and you say, I'm going to go climb Machu Picchu versus I'm going to go do 5 miles today, right? There's something really big at the end of that people can get super stoked about. So that does make sense to me, versus just, I'm just going to deliver baseline, because then that means that I only ever have to deliver baseline. So a couple of funky, weird thoughts came to my mind about funny things that have been said to me over the years that have nothing to do with business. But years and years ago, I keep this kind of immaculate home. And I remember a girlfriend of mine saying, you know what your problem is you keep your home too neat. And so now you've built this expectation that your home always has to be neat. And I don't know why. That's where my squirrel brain went, because I thought, isn't that the truth? People assume that if you achieve something, that there's this expectation that you'll always achieve it. But you're saying, and why not?
Yeah. I've never come into a business and not said I was going to double it. Sometimes it's double it in 2 years. Sometimes it's double it in 5 years, whatever that looks like in that business. But I've always had that be the baseline of we're going to think big picture and how do we double this business, and then work backwards on how we're going to get there and figure out how to get everyone excited about that.
Okay. So give us another one of your core principles that you talk about in your book.
Sure. So the 80-20 matrix of profitability is really about treating customers and products differently inside your organization. So there are good customers, there are less than good customers, there are good products, there are less than good products. What we do is we basically list the customers from biggest to smallest, and we list the products from most profitable to least profitable. And you take the top 20% will typically drive 80% of your sales. The top 20% will typically drive 80% of your profits in both customers and products. So when you draw those lines, now you've got the top 20% of products and the top 20% of customers up in the one quadrant. That will drive the majority of your business. And those people need to be taken care of. Those people need to be treated differently. And then you need to do different things with the other quadrants. So where you have smaller customers and your better products, you need to figure out how to treat them differently to drive the right behavior and or more profitability. Where you have worse products but good customers, you might have to do those in order to satisfy those customers, but you might outsource them, or you might move them to a different product that does the same thing, and then in the bottom quadrant, where you have the bad or less than good customers and the bad products, those are things that you need to maybe exit out of your business or jack the price way up so that you get paid for the complexity. Because what tends to happen is you put all of your time and effort, you don't realize it, but you're putting all of your time and effort in the complex customers and the complex products that are not driving your profitability. So that's what the 80-20 matrix of profitability. There are some companies out there that do this and do it well. And so my theory that I bring to the table is the 80-20 squared theory, which is really even doing the 80-20 inside of your big bucket at the top. That's the most profitable. And the top 4% of customers are driving about the top 64% of profitability. And it's so much easier to make more money and make more sales to those 4% than it is to go out and find new ones. And so it's all about how do you treat those 4% and how do you eliminate some of the others so that you can put more time and energy into the 4% and drive maximum profitability.
It makes so much sense, because at the end of the day, no matter the business that you're in, big, small, whether it's a small coaching business or huge business, everyone knows that doing the hustle, no fun. Okay. But if you nurture your customer, if you nurture your client and you keep those people in your wheelhouse and you nurture them and you're bringing in revenue, you are not having to do the hustle, because you've got this core community, if you will, this core set of customers or core set of clients that you've nurtured them enough and they're bringing in enough revenue where you are not finding yourself doing the hustle, which frankly is a time sucker, right? So, exactly. And then to nurture them to the level that you want them could take years and years and years, if it ever even works.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So, okay, well, I love that. So before we move on, I have a question for you. What made you write the book?
Yeah, so I wrote the book because, so if we go back to that first episode, like I got diagnosed and completely lost my business edge because I medicated the bipolar, and so it took away the hypomania that was driving the business edge, and during the next couple turnarounds, I really figured out that I needed to mimic some of that hypomanic management that I had used to move up the corporate ladder. So I started mimicking this and mimicking that, and I did a couple of them during the first turnaround. I did a couple of them during the second turnaround. During the third turnaround, I got to the 13th month, and I went, oh, I forgot to do that thing over there from the first turnaround. And I realized I needed to write these things down and start to develop this toolbox of tools that I could use, 4 or 5 different things. And it ended up being 10. And I wrote these all down. And during the fourth turnaround, I kind of methodically went through them, and boom, 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 boom. And everything went 100 times faster, 100 times better. And at that point, I was like, okay, I've been teaching my second in commands, my directors, my lieutenants to do these for years. I think I've proven that I can teach this to people who are not bipolar, that can then use this systematized toolbox to manage in a hypomanic fashion, which basically just means thinking differently for breakthrough results, right? And so then it was a matter of, do I want to write a book and basically tell everybody I'm bipolar or not? And that was a pretty big decision. But I decided that at the end of the day, I could serve 2 masters here. I could teach people how to manage differently for breakthrough results, and I could also teach people about the value of neurodiversity in the workplace. And that's what ended up making me decide to write the book.
Yeah, well, and I'm so glad you shared that, because to me, you also did those 2 things, and you did so much more, because you normalized mental health in the workspace, and you said, look, this is me, Todd, and I have been this huge transformation specialist, and I have bipolar, and I'm still able to do this. So you took what you were managing and you said, if I can focus it, if I can take what would possibly be limitations and turn them into avenues or strategies towards success, I can still propel and I can still succeed as if I was in a manic episode, because I've got a strategy, I've got a system. And really, our brains, no matter how they think or function, our brains love strategy and system because they have something that makes sense. And so even if we're very creative thinkers, in order to put the creativity into practice, we have to have a strategy, right? Otherwise, we're just mumbo jumbo everywhere.
100%. And it's actually so much better now because I've got these different tools and I can choose when to grab them. right? So there might have been times before where I got into hypomanic episode and I started thinking way outside the box, and it wasn't the time for that. You know what I mean? It wasn't the right time for that particular type of hypomania. It would have been way better if I had gone deep and focused hard, on something. So now that it's systematized and I'm medicated, I can recognize when I need to think outside the box and when I need to go deep in on something and focus hard. And I can pull the system that I need at that time. And so can you, not being bipolar. And that's the idea behind the toolbox, because you don't need all these tools at once. You need these tools when you need them. And once they're in a system, you can grab them whenever you need them.
Yeah, and I like that. Plus, I would imagine then that you can grab one, maybe not two, or grab three, but maybe not four. And so you can take them as you need them and apply them per your situation that you're facing. What do you think organizations, Todd, can learn from neurodivergent? Like basically, what can they learn from neurodivergent thinkers, like especially in leadership and innovation, instead of, because I would imagine that there's still some out there that frankly don't know enough about it, or they're fear-based of it, or they might have seen the best of the worst stuff. So I don't know, what can they learn from it?
Yeah, and it's a great point. And all different neurodiversity divergences have, different strengths. But I love talking about the innovation one, because many of us have that aspect of it inside of our neurodivergence is thinking outside the box. And people don't realize how important this is, because there are so many different types of innovation, and everyone always thinks it has to start with an invention and a product. And there's so many different types of innovation that surround process or just thinking differently. But the one that we talk about the most is orthodoxy smashing innovation. And it lines right up with neurodivergence. And it basically starts with, think about all the orthodoxies in your industry, which are things that everyone thinks is true. Right. So you think about something that everyone in the industry thinks is true. And then you start asking, what if it's not? What if that is not true? What would we do differently? How would we handle it if that wasn't true? And that's how neurodivergence tends to think. This is what people call outside the box, right? No one can really define that, but that's what people call outside the box, is something way out that like no one would think about that. When I was in Whirlpool Corp, every washer and dryer that were sold was white. This was back 15 years ago. Okay. We were the first people that said, what if we advertised silver washer and dryers? They existed, but nobody ever advertised them. Nobody ever put them on the floor. It was just this thing you could buy if you wanted to. Well, it turns out that if somebody buys a silver dryer, they're going to buy the washer. Okay. Because they're not going to keep their old white washer. But if somebody buys a new white dryer, they might just keep the washer, right? And so what ended up happening is, by changing that, by challenging that and saying, I think people will respond to silver in an ad and silver on the floor, we actually not only increased our sales because it costs more, but we were selling two products instead of one every single time. So instead of 30% attachment rate, we had 100. Because nobody was buying just one. And so, but that all started with, for 50 years, people had bought washers and dryers the same. It was always white, and it was just took one time for us to sit there and go, and by the way, it wasn't one time. It was, we came up with the idea, and then it took like 6 months to get them to do it. But that changed everything. Now, if you're looking at an advertisement today, it's all color.
I love that so much. That is such a great example, because I grew up with the only white washer and dryer, and I love that so much, because people don't like mismatched things, especially if it's in the laundry room that you walk in from the garage and everyone would see it. What a brilliant idea. But I also love the what if, because that's one of my favorite things. What if those thoughts aren't true? What if the way that, what if every thought you think is not true? What if your feelings are not facts? So I love that what if. It's just challenging the traditional way of doing things, or challenging what you think or believe, and saying, what if there's a different way of seeing this? What if the person that you're arguing with actually has some valid points? What if your way is not the only way? So I love that you are saying that's the way that, that we can understand neurodivergence. But to me, that's a way to understand human beings in general, just to make space for different thoughts and feelings and ways of looking at the world, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's so important. it's just a matter of like, what I always say is the easiest way to make money in this world is to take a 50-year-old idea and do it differently. like take a boring business and change one thing. And if you think a lot of these, Uber changed taxi cabs, right? Like Uber Eats changed how we order. Like I order from a restaurant way more often now because I don't have to go out to a restaurant. Just little tiny changes in super old industries drive so much profit. And you're right, in just your everyday world, this is exactly how you should do things. Like why does everyone do it this way? What if we did it that way? And the beautiful thing that people don't talk about enough is teaching your kids that your kids will inherently do it anyway. And what do? No, it's done this way. like we basically just kick it out of them right from the beginning. And you really need to value that thought and let them kind of build on it.
Well, the word that comes to mind is curiosity, because I did an entire episode on curiosity and just the value of being curious, the value of questioning the way that we traditionally think or believe or do things, just being curious about the world, which is what kids are. Kids constantly ask questions, and curiosity is somebody who asks questions. Curiosity is somebody who wonders if things could be different, if they're viewed differently or done differently. And so in the spirit of that, I say yes, right? Because we all could benefit from being a little more curious. And actually curiosity leads to joy, because we're not so rigid in the way that we think about things, right?
Yep, absolutely. And the most expensive words in business are, we've always done it this way. And everyone knows that, but no one cares. You still hear it all the time in every business. You still shut down new innovation because we tried it once 12 years ago. Well, the world has changed. 12 years ago, it might have been a bad idea, or it might have been executed poorly. Like we have to be open to these ideas, and orthodoxy smashing just invites it, right? Orthodoxy smashing is a workshop where you do it on purpose, and that's all you do that day is smash orthodoxies. Not every one of them is going to be $1 million idea, but one of them in there is, and that's the idea, is if you systematize it, then it's not just every now and then coming up with a crazy idea and thinking it's going to turn into $1 million. That's not how you do it. You come up with 50 crazy ideas, vet them all out, and then the top 3 you put into place,
Smashing orthodoxy. I think you could just call BS day.
That's right.
You smash orthodoxy, you call BS on everything in the way that everything was once done, and then you try to do it different ways. I love that. Yeah. So for you personally, what does healthy ambition look like now compared to what it looked like before you understood your neurodivergence?
Yeah, well, before I understood my neurodivergence, I was pretty convinced I was going to be president during hypomanic episodes. Like that was the pretty consistent view, was like, okay, maybe I'll just quit my job and go run for president. Like nobody knows who I am, but I'm sure I'll get elected, So hypomania is not something to be, super admired. Like, so now ambitious looks like, if I continue to do well and I focus and I get all this done and I set these big goals to double the business, and 3 years from now I do, that will lead me to XYZ. And next I'll get a promotion that I want, or next I can have a different type of job that I enjoy, or move to a different part of the country that is good, or my family can get this thing because of all the hard work. You know what I mean? None of that stuff came in before. It was always just, I'm going to be president. Like it was. so I mean, it's really interesting now because I can literally say, okay, if I do this 3 years from now, the family will look like this, and now we've got 4 kids and 4 dogs and 4 cats, and we got, a big house, and things are going well, but it's all happened probably since that diagnosis 8 years ago. I was doing good before then, but there was basically zero planning at that point. It was just run as hard as you can and good stuff will happen,
Yeah. Run as hard as you can until you hit a wall.
Yeah. Which I did frequently. Yeah.
And then you lay down bleeding for a while and then run again, right? Mm-hmm. Like no consistency is really what you're saying. And consistency got you the 4 dogs, 4 cats, the big house, and consistency in the way that you work and strategies that you were able to put into a book, which I think is a beautiful thing. So for leaders or managers who are listening right now, how can they best support neurodivergent team members without stigma, without overcorrection, without trying to fix them? them.
Yep. And that's the key is you don't fix them. You look for areas where you can learn from them. You look for areas where they can learn from you. And so if part of their neurodivergence is driving this behavior that they would be much better off fixing, there is certain behavior that can be fixed, right? So if there's this area over here, it'd be great if you didn't do that. You would set yourself up for a better promotion. We can work on that together. But while we do that, I want to learn how you approach innovation and what made you think of that one idea. Why did you look at that process? What caused you to look at that process? How did you look at it differently? Like, let's learn a little something. You have an OCD coworker and they're diving deep into this and they catch something that you never would have caught it because you're not as detail oriented. Like, what caused you to do that? Did you map it all out? Do you just see it differently? Like, these are the things that approaching somebody, trying to fix them is going to get a certain reaction. Approaching somebody, celebrating some of the ways that they think differently, and then saying, there's this other area that we can work on together. You can help me with innovation. I can help you with, how you manage up the chain, how you get your point across in a meeting. It would be great if I could teach you that and you could teach me this. That's the best way, think about any other time you're working with a coworker. Like, that's always the best way. You teach me this, I'll teach you this. We're going to both get better together. Like, we're no different. So we should probably be treated the same. So,
well, it's like if you sit around a table, you don't just have different humans, different shapes, sizes, all the different things. You also have, if there's 15 people at a table, you have 15 different brains, 15 different ways of seeing the world, 15 different value systems, 15 different sets of emotions. We are so worried about that and scared of that in our world. We're so scared of diversity and we're so scared of people thinking differently from us. It makes us feel threatened. And yet, what a beautiful, beautiful thing, because what can we learn from each other? And what I really hear you say is, hey, celebrate that everyone's brain fires and functions differently. And that because of that, they are going to have such a unique lens that could make your organization or help you see your organization completely differently. Like, take your business and put it into a different picture frame. And it's the same business, but now you're going to see it differently. So wouldn't it be beautiful if leaders and managers universally could do that, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
So if you could leave listeners with one challenge or one mindset shift about mental health and work, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would tell people that, and I said this in the last one, but I think, everyone's got their thing. Some people have mental illness. Some people have, character flaws or character something. Some people have 3 divorces and they're trying to get through XYZ. Like, we all have our thing. There's value to going through the thing. You can learn stuff from people who have been through it. And I would just seek to understand, don't judge, don't try and fix, unless they ask you for help, which they will if they need it. But you also shouldn't be afraid to tell people your thing and to get it out there. And that's what I've essentially done here after 8 years of not doing it. So I'm not, it was 15 years undiagnosed. It was 8 years of not saying a thing. So I'm not like the poster child for openness, right? But now I'm doing it, and I can tell you that I'm healthier, happier, more satisfied with not having to hide it all the time than I ever have been. So I would say, don't be afraid to let people in, but also don't think that they're going to spend a whole lot of time thinking about you. Like, it's still your thing to deal with. Just let people in, make sure that you frame it the right way, and ask for help when you need it. It's a lot easier to ask for help if people understand that there's something to help,
Yeah. Well, it's keeping that secret, that the weight of the secret is what's so heavy. And yet when you let people in, you get to focus on healing and helping yourself. Because to your point, not everyone is going to have the capacity to help or to do any of that because they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are. But to me, if we're not holding a secret, we're clearing space, and then we can focus on our own personal healing. So we're not going to need as much help because we're getting the resources and we're getting the community that we need to feel as healthy as we can, right?
That's
So
exactly.
theoretically, if we can just, so Todd, you have this book, and I don't know if you have a picture of it or you want to hold it up or whatever, but if you want to just tell us how we could find your book or find you, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a book. It's called Unfair Advantage, Weaponizing the Hypomanic Toolbox. I've actually got 3 books coming total. So this is the first one. It is pre-order on Amazon now. It'll be open to order soon. But if you want any of this information, just go to toddhagopian.com. And basically, I don't sell consulting. So I put a lot of this information out there for free. Hundreds of articles. People can read all about it. You can get everything you're going to get in the book in the articles. Go ahead and read them. Send me questions. Ask me. I love talking about this stuff, and I don't sell it. So I would love to help people. If you're neurodivergent and you have questions about that, a lot of people ask me stuff about that. I'm not an expert, but I can listen. I can tell you what I think, and we can go from there.
Well, you have lived experience. So, Todd, I really appreciate you coming on, and to all of you who are listening, just really, I hope that the takeaway is that mental mastery isn't about changing who you are. It's about learning to work with your mind, not against it. So I hope that this conversation invites all of us to see mental health through a different lens, to see mental health concerns as sources of strength, creativity, and power. So until we see you next time, I hope that you stay strong in your mind and in your body. I'm Angie Miller. Thank you for joining us on Strong Mind, Strong Body.